Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about creating a burger menu. So this is something I've had to do a couple of times recently for the team app and also for my own portfolio site, and I found that it's something I learned to do in quite a quick way, and I think I was just talking earlier with Nico, and he was kind of saying that they found it like a really complex thing, so I'm going to try what?
Hide.
Oh, hide this. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so what is a burger menu? I'm not really sure what to call it. If you Google it, obviously this is the type of thing that comes up. So, yeah, we know it's on a website. There's different ways you could call it, maybe like a burger button or a hamburger icon, but it's something that's used on many websites, often in one of the top corners, and it's just an interactive button for showing a menu. And I was looking at different sites online, for example, so I saw that Tinder uses it on their website. They had quite a sort of fancy interactive one where it becomes a cross and then uncrosses again. And I found there's also a lot of online libraries where they just do these hamburger icons, and you can download all sorts of different animated versions, so it's definitely worth checking out once you've mastered it. Also Deliveroo and YouTube. So yeah, these are everywhere. And ironically, I even found a burger restaurant that also has a hamburger button in it. So there we go. So let's get cooking and fry ourselves up some hamburger menus. Okay. Straight into action. So I have developed, this is going to sound really lame, a 10-point plan for creating your burger menu. So I'm going to be doing this using React. And as you can see, I have created a very basic React app. Let's just get it going, npm start. So this is a very, very simple website. It's just got a little bit of content on. Just give it a moment to set up. I don't know, I don't have the Google Hangouts. Oh, okay. Everybody in this room, please mute your laptops. It's probably because I talk quite loudly.
When you talk, when Grace talks, there's no echo.
Do you want me to speak a bit quieter?
No, I don't think that's it. Just move the mic away.
Yeah. It's probably my loud voice bouncing off the walls in this room. I don't know. But yeah, if everybody has their laptops muted.
It's coming from your laptop and the microphone.
I see. So I should mute myself on Google Hangouts. Sorry, guys. No, I had just muted my laptop. That's probably it then, isn't it? Is that better for people listening at home? Guys, does this sound better? Is there less echo?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. I was a bit confused earlier. Right, so back to what we're doing, because I don't want this to drag on too long. Right, this is a very, very basic, single page React app. As you can see, I've just got a header and some text. So we're going to create our navbar. So on this page, I've set up already an empty navbar component. And actually, before we import that into our app.js, I think there's a few things on this page we're going to have to set up. So what's the first thing? I'm going to be making a functional component. So I was hoping that everybody in the room, maybe harder for those at home, if people could just shout out what to start typing. What's the first thing we're going to have to do when we're making a React component on the page? It begins with I. The next letter is M. Import. Yeah. From React. Okay, great. So then
curly braces.
Curly braces.
You want to import new state? No.
So now I'm going to create a functional component. So what's the first thing? Export default. What we're going to name our component? Navbar. Very nice. Okay, and then what are we going to put inside of this function first? Same thing we do every time. A return statement. Yes, and just for the sake of making things easy, let's add some fragments. And because I know Gideon's watching from home, I've added a semicolon. Okay, so if we go back to our app.js, let's import our navbar. There we go. It's a navbar, and I've named it navbar. Okay, cool. So I'm going to add it here at the top of my folder. It's inside the app div bar. So just going to add that component there in the self-closing tag. Great. It's very upset about something. Can anyone see what the error is here? It's because this is lowercase and I've used uppercase. Dunsies. Okay, so as we can see, there's no difference because our navbar component is entirely empty. We shall change that. So before we start adding stuff into our function, I'm just going to show you that I have already gone online. I used the Icon Monster website, which Ricardo often recommends to us, and I've imported a hamburger PNG. I chose to make it white because we're going to be making a black nav bar because our website's going to be extremely classy looking. Okay, so that is our hamburger.png. So now we're going to import it into our navbar app. I'm just going to close that to create more space. So we can call it hamburger from, so let me just find the file path. It's okay. It's got to go out one and then hamburger.png. Okay, that looks good enough to me. So now it's kind of upset because we've defined it, but we haven't actually put it anywhere. Terribly sorry. We shall do soon. Please be patient. Okay, so right. Let me just go back to my 10 steps. So first step done, creating navbar with all the import exports. Number 2, create a navbar with tags. So I seem to have a really bad habit of using div tags like all the time. So I sort of wanted to create this without using any div tags. Extra bonus points. Okay, so for the sake of the navbar, I'm going to use a main tag because sure, why not? Also, I will point out that I have already created all of my CSS properties here because I realize this is just going to take way too long if I do all the CSS as well. So you can see here at the top, I've created already CSS component, property. Would you say property? Stylings?
Sorry, what were you talking about mine now?
What would you call, the styles? Just a style, sure, okay. Anyway, I've already created this, so I'm just going to give this main tag a class name of myNav. So what's kind of good to test your CSS knowledge is before I just show you what it looks like on the page, it's good to just look at what the CSS is and try to visualize what you think it's going to look like. So for the nav bar, I've given it a fixed position. This means that no matter how much content we add to the page, it's going to stay fixed at the top of the page. I wanted to also mention that for height and width, I've used VH and VW. Can somebody tell me what those stand for? What do they stand for? Viewport. Yeah, so yeah, perfect. So I noticed that sometimes when people are making these types of navbar components, they'll often use something like a percentage, and I actually don't think that's great practice because the percentage, the difference between the view width, for example, and the percentage is that it doesn't matter what size your screen is going to be, it's always going to be 100% of your screen. Whereas if you use percentage, it's actually dictated by its outer container. So if you have something within another div or another tag, it's only going to fill 100% of the space within that. So I think for something that's going to look I want it to be responsive. I want this site to look good on mobile and on desktop. So I've used VH and VW. And you'll see later why that's also really helpful for when we're making the menu. All right, so I've given it a background of black. So I've also... Yeah, that's a good point. So it's percentage, even though it doesn't have a percentage. So that's the height of my nav bar is going to be 15% of the viewing height. So it will take over the top 15% of whatever screen you're using to look at it. All right, so I've also made it into a flex box with a flex direction of row reverse. And then I'm not going to talk through every single thing I've done here. So let's just look at that. Refresh. It does not exist. Good start. Okay. Yeah, that's true. All right. Good point. Haven't added anything. Hopefully once we add some content. Although that should actually work because it has got a specified height and width already. So I don't know why not adding content. Ah, very good. That's the one thing we've forgotten to import. The CSS page. Okay, so navbar CSS. Okay, is it in the same folder? Good work, Simon. Right, let's see. Navbar.css. All right, let's see. Does this look different? Aha, there it is. There's our black strip. Yes, Josue.
What language is this?
This is... So this is kind of like a sample language you can get off the internet. I think it's called Lorem Ipsum. It's basically, I think, it's like, it's Latin, I think.
Okay.
And it's basically just filler text. So whenever you're making something, you don't want to start writing like, this is an example piece of text, blah, 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 blah. It's just something that you can literally copy and paste off the internet, and it just shows you like what the writing will look like. So don't worry. I wonder how long you were like staring at that, thinking like, I thought I was getting better at English. Why doesn't this make any sense to me? Okay, yeah. So, right. Back to our steps. Okay, we're going to add the hamburger menu button icon, whatever you want to call it, inside of our nav bar. Okay, so I'm actually going to do this inside of a button because ultimately we want it to be a button. Okay, and I'm going to do it as an image. I want it to be a self-closing image tag. Okay, so what is the source for our image? Very nice. Good. And because the internet gets upset if you don't do an alternative text, we'll just write something like hamburger, duh. All right, so it's going to look really horrible. Ew, because I haven't applied any CSS stylings. So let's first look at the CSS stylings for the hamburger. Here, I've created the class name of burger. Okay, this is just given it a specified width and height. I didn't bother with view height, view width for this. I just wanted it to be the same on every screen. Little bit of padding, and maybe this is kind of given away what I'm about to ask next. But if you remember, the nav bar itself, actually, I already showed you the answer. Damn it, I was going to ask you where do you think it has been rendered inside the nav bar, given our flex box. Let's see who was paying attention. Given that we're using row reverse and flex, where would our first item appear inside of our nav bar? So it's row reverse, which means that it's going the reverse. Top right. Very good. And so for that reason, I gave it an extra bit of padding there on the right-hand side because I don't want it to be completely up against the right-hand side of the screen. So it's still going to look a bit poo-poo, but it should look a bit better. Okay, so it's in the right place, but obviously it's gone a bit funny, and that's because it's inside of a button. And button has a lot of stylings already applied to it. So I also created a class for the button itself here, burger button, where I have gotten rid of all the stylings, no background, no border. And if you're wondering what this outline none is, I'm not sure if anyone's come across this issue before with when you're putting buttons on a website, but sometimes I found, like, even though I've gotten rid of the border and the background and it looks fine, as soon as you click on a button, it has this annoying outline that appears, and it's to do with double clicking. But I actually think that looks a bit ugly. So I looked it up and it's called outline. So if you get rid of an outline, even when you click the button, it's not going to have this like residual box. So anyway, let's add that styling, and then we can see our beautiful burger button in all of its glory. Okay, so burger button, bubble. It's gone a bit slow now. There it is, and look at it. Even when I click on it, well, obviously nothing happens at this point because we haven't given it any functionality, but there's no residual box or anything. And just to see, whoops, no, don't do that. Right, let's just see what it looks like on mobile mode. Beautiful. Okay, I hope you'll agree. What a stylish, wonderful website. But anyway, anyone could make an old fixed nav bar. That's not what we've come here for. Right, next bit. Let's create the nav menu. So I'm actually going to just make everything inside this one component. And again, I'm not going to use a div, I'm going to use a main tag. And this will be our main nav menu. This is going to be the section which hopefully when it works, when you click the burger icon, this is the menu that will appear, and it's going to fill the screen and it's going to give you some menu items. So, there is a nav tag. I was going to ask if you thought of anything better. Should we do that? How do you spell it? Just nav?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I didn't know that was one, and I'm glad you've told me. Let's just see if everything looks the same. Perfect. Thank you.
Really have more than one main tag per section.
Yeah.
So that would be not great.
Okay.
This works.
Good to know. That's the thing, like, I always just use divs, and I know you gave us a workshop once on all the different alternatives, but it kind of went over my head a bit. So I was actually hoping that people would come up with some good suggestions during this, so thank you very much, Max. Taken on board.
It's called semantic HTML.
Yeah, semantic HTML, or descriptive of what your page layout actually is rather than just a generic div.
Okay, so anyway, back to our menu. Again, this is something I've created a class name for, and I've called it nav menu. All right, so if we look at our nav menu CSS, you can see that this is something which also has a fixed position, because once it opens, we want it to fill the whole screen, and we want it to sit below the nav bar and obviously not on top of it or behind it or whatever. So as I was saying before, one of the things I like about the VH-VW thing is that you can kind of slot them together like jigsaw pieces. So because our nav bar has a 15 VH, 100 minus 15, 85. So now we know that these two components together are going to fill 100% of any screen that we use. There's going to be no awkward scrolling around, and I just think that looks very tight and nice. Okay, so I've given it a background of purple, and again, this is a flex box with a flex direction column. This is just to do with making it look nice, the space evenly justify content option. And just because even though we don't have that much content on our website at the moment, and I don't think this actually really would be a problem at this point, as you build on your website, you're going to add more and more content. So it's good to just make sure that you give these things a z-index value in case you put anything on there afterwards, which might kind of sit on top of your menu bar. I think so, yeah. I don't know that much about the z-index stuff, but I know you could do like a minus as well. And so as you add more content, you might want to later go back and increase the Z index value. As I said, I actually don't think we need it at this point, but I just thought I'd put it there as a kind of reminder. So if we go back now, this menu, it will be on our screen. Boom, there it is. And obviously we can't access the content we have underneath it yet because we haven't given it any functionality. So let's add some content to our navbar. I thought I would just do these in H4 tags because they'll just sort of look nice. And inside each H4 tag, I'm going to put an anchor tag because each of our menu items are ultimately going to be a link to a different page of the website. So inside an anchor tag, we have a href, which is this is just going to be where it's going to link to. And for the time being, I'm just going to put a /, which is just linking back to our homepage. So let's just make, I don't know, do you want 3 or 4? Let's add 4 items. And if you guys could just maybe shout out some suggestions for page names of our website. Home. What was the other one? About. And then that could link to a fictional about page, which we don't have yet. Contact. Let's make that connect to our contact page. Anything else? Huh? LinkedIn as a page on a website. That would.
Sexy burgers.
Sexy burger page. Good. Okay. Actually, I don't know why I've done it in like this camel case because. Okay, we can just do that /sexy. Coolsies. So, let's see what that looks like. Okay, it looks okay. They're spaced nicely because we used a flex box with the space evenly justify option, but obviously they're still looking a little bit poo-poo. So, let's add a little bit of styling, which I probably should have done before because now I'm going to have to copy and paste that a bunch of times. This should be our menu item here. I've added something to our A tags. Oh, I see, okay. So this needs to have a class name of menu item. So this class name, would I add that to the A or to the menu item if I've done it like this? Yeah, okay. Just checking. Okay, so yeah, I've made them all nice and white with 0 text decoration, which means it's not going to have like underlining, and I've made them in bold. So yes, that looks good-ish, whatever. All right, good enough anyway. Okay, let's see. So we still have our nav bar. It looks okay, but obviously it's just that, and you know we don't want that to be our main website. So just going back to our steps, let's see. Done this bit. Okay. Now is the bit where we actually do the functional section. And you'll see that this is hopefully much easier than what you might have anticipated. So, what I'm going to do is create here for our nav menu, I'm going to create an ID tag. And at the moment, that's just going to link to an empty JavaScript container, and it's going to be complaining because we haven't put anything in there. So this is actually going to link to a React state. So let's define this. Oh God, I just forgot how to do this for a second. Const, now I remember. So this is going to be an ID, right? Let me just explain a little bit. So I created before an ID here called menu display off. And this just has display none. So when this ID is applied to this section, our menu, it won't be visible. And what will be visible is the actual content of our website. So we want to create a situation where we're toggling between this ID being applied and not being applied. Sorry? A Boolean state. Yeah, so actually I'm not going to do that. because then I would have had to add more components, and I tried to make this as like minimal as possible. So we're just going to have menu displayed, spelled correctly, menu display, and set menu display. And I'm going to use the react.use state. Does this need like that?
Yeah, it's a method.
Right, okay. And so in its default, when you go on a website, oh yeah, of course it's, does the menu, would the menu be already shown, or would it not be shown? Not shown. So we want our default state. Do we want this ID to be shown or not shown? Like, do we want the menu display off to be applied to that main tag or not? Sorry? Exactly. So when we go onto the website, we want the default state to be menu display off. So I'm just going to write that here. And then in here, the ID is going to be menu display. So this means that when we go onto our website, this whole section, the main section, is going to have an ID of menu display. So it's going to ignore all of the other little class names and things we've added, and it's just going to say like, oh, the ID, which we know has like a higher specificity than this class, this is going to be the overriding style, and it's going to be display none. So this should work, and now we can't see our menu. Okay, great. But obviously it's not complete because we still haven't given any functionality to our button. So let's create a function which will toggle between menu display off and what do you think we could toggle it between that might work? If we have nothing, as we've seen, the ID doesn't like to have empty content, right? Because it's broken. So what's something we could use to maybe use as an alternative? Do you know? So I thought we could literally just use just empty quotations. It doesn't even have to be that simple. I mean, that complicated, right? So let's create a function called, I don't know, toggle menu? Sure, why not? All right, so we don't need any input. This is literally going to be when this function gets invoked, it's going to change the value of our menu display through the set menu display function. So in here, we're going to add a ternary statement, ternary operator. Okay, there. It will be like this. Something like this. Is menu display this? Question mark. Oh, whoops, that's not a question mark. So, is our menu display equal to menu display off? Question mark. Answer, yes. If so, please change to empty quotation marks. Otherwise, make menu display off. Everybody happy with that? Okay, coolsies. Gideon, yes, I have added a semicolon. Actually, it doesn't like it. Forget about it. Oh, at the end. Yes, very good. Okay. Right. So, let's see, what does that look like? Aha. Okay, so we got the function. We haven't broken anything. But as we see here, it's defined, but it's never used. So what we're going to need to do is to create, in our button here, an on-click. Oh, wait, yeah, I knew that was inside the image. Okay, it has to be inside the button. Needs an on-click function. We're going to add some JavaScript curlies. Let's create a callback function that is going to invoke our toggle menu. Let's see if that works. Hey. But before we finish, I want to do one more thing because even though these links aren't connecting to anything yet, or well, technically they're going to link to empty pages /about/contact/sexy, they still have to have the same function applied to them. Because if you go on a website and you click on the menu, right, and you click to go to home, for example, or well, that one did not count. Contact. It's really weird that worked, to be honest. But I don't think it actually would anyway. So we just have to we have to make sure that if you click on one of these menu items, it's not going to stay on the menu. So I think it's just probably a good idea to just add this on-click function to some of our A tags, just to make sure that it knows that it's going to toggle that, and so that this state is in the correct one, because otherwise you might click on something, even if it does redirect to another page, maybe this state is going to be wrong, so then you're going to have to like keep clicking on it a few times and it's kind of going to confuse itself. So you have to make sure that the on click, like our toggle, is up to date with where we are on the site, so it's reflected in our user journey. So I'm going to add that as well to all of these A tags. Right, let's see. And here, I think I've put those in the right place. So now we have it. It's going to click to something. There we go. And I think that is everything. Yeah. Cool. So does anyone have any questions?
Could you just go back to
The code?
Yeah.
Was there any... Sorry, go on.
Okay, because you know what you wrote on line 6?
Mm-hmm.
So that's equivalent of writing import React, comma, curly brackets, use state.
Yeah, so we could have done this as well. Use state. And then like that.
Yeah, okay.
But I just did it there because we used it one time. What about online? Are there any questions? Oh, never mind. The power's gone out. Oh, okay.
Why do you have your terminal on the right hand side? On the bottom?
Oh, just because, firstly, I just prefer it on the right hand side. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah, we still got the internet.
So if I did that
Oh, that was so much better.
for you, right. Whoops. It's just preference. I just prefer it to have it on the right hand side. Because actually, it looks fine because it's working, but you know, as soon as there's like an error, it actually takes up a lot of lines, and I don't like to have to scroll around so much, so I just prefer to keep it on the right hand side because I can make it kind of thin and then I can still see everything. That's just personal preference, what you're used to. Anything about the CSS? Was there any like CSS that you didn't understand? Yeah.
Could you re-explain what you said about the one bit of the page being 15 VH and the other one being 85 VH?
Yeah, sure. So this is to do with what I'm thinking is, sorry, is this still working? Oh yeah, because it's connected to your laptop. I just thought maybe they couldn't hear anything. So it's just to do with like a unit of screen measurement, VH and VW. That's view height and viewport width. So it doesn't matter what your screen size is. This is always going to take up 15% of the top part of your screen, or wherever you put it. It's going to take up 15% of the height of your screen. And this will always take up 100% of the width of your screen. So the VHVW are determined by the screen size, whereas percentage is determined by the its outer component, like the outer div tag.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Are you asking why we chose 15 and 85 specifically, or not?
No, because you said that it's like If it wasn't like 15 and 85, then you could end up with a gap.
Okay, so why don't we just see what's it would look like?
Yes, yes.
If we keep that at 15, but we made this 100, what do you think it might look like? Like, how do you think that would render? So it's going to be that this purple section goes down. Actually, because it's fixed, I can't really scroll, but you can see that it's cut off.
Yep.
That's because that whole purple section alone, it's taking up 100% view height. If I now got rid of the nav bar, if I made that 0, right? Now the purple should take up 100% of the screen. Oh, it's not because it's got like a margin top or something. I'm not really sure why. Let's see. I think I don't know, something to do with some stylings I've added in there already. But
Okay, I get what you mean.
okay, a better example is maybe to just make this 100. I have to refresh. That's why. See, now that takes up exactly 100%.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter what, if I go back to 15 and 85. Right, the point is, it doesn't matter like what type of screen I use. Those two are always going to have, this is 15%, this is 85%.
Okay.
So it just looks like cleaner, and you don't have to worry about, sometimes. Yeah, sometimes you look at different screens and it's coming off the edge a bit or whatever, but this is like, it's going to make sure that it's always these proportions. Okay. Anything else? Any questions from online?
There's no question online, it's just a well done, Zara, from Johnny.
Oh, thanks. Well done. Yeah, I'm not interested anymore. Goodbye. All right. So anyway, I think I'm going to conclude there. Yeah. Don't know how to stop streaming this. Cool. Thank you.